everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I'm on a couple minutes early. Like and share, tag. Welcome. It's Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know what today is? It's time for Tea Talks. We are ready. So we give a couple minutes for people to join. Please like and share. Please tag someone. I would appreciate it. Let them know that we're here today, that we are here and we are ready to have some great conversation. Have some great conversation. So I'm going to try to tag some people myself. So please like and share. Please tag someone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our Tea Talks this evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited today. You know what? Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Right back. Give me 1 second. I shall return. 1 second. All right, I am back. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Great evening, Kimberly. Hello, Sharice. Thank you. Hey, Tina. Thank you for joining me this evening. We appreciate it. This is our Wednesday night meeting, and we're going to talk about a little bit of trauma today. I'm starting a series on the lies that trauma tells us. So this is going to be really interesting. Every week, we're going to dispel the lie that trauma tells us. So please like and share. We have about another minute, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I had to run inside for a minute to get something. So I'm excited for you all to be here. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. This is my mug for today. It says, His love endures forever. Psalms 110:1. So I am drinking pineapple tea today. You're probably going to see some stuff flying around because I'm outside. But peppermint tea today. Peppermint tea with honey and lemon. So thank you. Please tag someone. Please invite someone to join in the conversation. I want you all to be a little bit interactive today. We're going to have some great conversation about the lies that trauma tells us. Hey, Tiara, how are you? Thank you for joining me. Hey, Dad, how are you? It's actually peppermint, Dad. It's peppermint tea. Hey, Ty, thank you for joining me. I appreciate all of your support. I am outside today. Yes, Ian, I am outside, but there is no furniture on the porch. I took care of that. But thank you for being concerned. All right, so let's jump into it. Hello, everyone. Hello, family. I'm Jackson-Birks, your trauma support specialist, and I'm so excited that you joined me today. Before we begin our conversation, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that today marks the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Can you all remember where you were and what you were doing on 9/11 of 2001? I know I was in a training class, and I was working for 911 at the time, and I was in a training class, and while we were training, the instructor she pushed in the TV on the wheel, and we watched the second plane hit the Twin Towers. It was devastating. It shook the world. That's one of those days that for everybody will always remember. A lot of people were affected. Many lives were changed. Families, first responders, entire communities. That trauma didn't just affect those who were there. It rippled through all of us. It impacted all of us. whether you were directly impacted or you felt the collective pain. Yes, we can experience collective pain from one another, us all going through something together. But it's important to recognize that. And I had to go back to work after that training. Our training was canceled because I had to, I got to be on the phone with people who were in distress. And they were calling because they didn't know what to do next. And 9/11 is a reminder of how trauma can leave a lasting mark on us. Sometimes it's personal and sometimes it's shared. But here's the thing. Even in those moments of trauma like 9/11, we can sometimes feel isolated, like no one truly understands what we're going through. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. That's what Tea Talks is all about. It's a safe space for meaningful conversation so that we can raise awareness, build resilience, and break the silence that's surrounding the impact of trauma on our lives. Because sometimes we're impacted and we don't even know. We don't even realize that we have been impacted. And we want to empower ourselves and others to become advocates for healing. So I just wanted to take that time to remind you that this is the 23rd anniversary and to remember those who lost, who lives were lost, and those who have still living with the effects of it. So grab your favorite mug, pour you some tea, and let's talk. So we're going to talk about the lies that trauma tells us. The lies that trauma tells us. What lies has trauma told you? Now, I want to always remind you of a few things before we get started. No one can decide for someone else whether an event or experience is traumatic. None of us can say to another person, hey, that's not so bad, that's not trauma, because we are all different people. Trauma is not a flaw or a weakness. It's basically your body's protective response to an event or series of events that it perceives as dangerous. Your body's protective response. So if your body doesn't perceive that as dangerous, it has no reason to protect itself, right? That's just like if you're being chased by a dog. If you're not afraid of the dog, you're not going to run. Nothing's going to happen. Your body, you're not going to be impacted by that experience. With someone else who is really afraid, that might shatter them to the core, right? So trauma is not what happens to you, but what happens inside of you. I just want to remind you of that also. Trauma is not what happens to you, but what happens inside of you. Okay, so just a little reminder to let you know not to judge anyone for their experiences. So let's talk about that feeling, right? Okay, so let's be real for a second. Trauma has a way of making us feel like we're the only ones going through it, right? It whispers to you, no one gets you. You're all alone. Trauma loves to convince us that no one else gets it, that we're the only ones going through the pain. But here's the thing. Trauma lies. Trauma lies. We've all been at some point feeling like we were stuck in our pain, like nobody could possibly understand what we were going through. So that's a lie. That's a lie that trauma tries to tell us, right? So let's break it down for a minute, because it's when that happens, it's a little bit of isolation that's going on. So trauma can be an isolating experience, whether it's something that happened in childhood or an event that you've experienced recently or something that you've carried for years or something that we've all experienced. We just talked about 9/11. Trauma makes us feel like you're the only one struggling in that moment. No one else could possibly understand what you're going through. And what happens is, why it makes us feel alone is because of two things. Trauma can come with so many complex emotions, and two of the biggest ones are shame and guilt. Shame and guilt. We often feel responsible for what happened to us, or we feel ashamed that we couldn't prevent it. We feel responsible for what happened to us, or we feel ashamed that we couldn't prevent it. Trauma has this nasty habit of making us feel like what happened to us is our fault. And when we begin to feel something is our fault, what do? We withdraw, right? We withdraw. And that's a natural response for any person when they feel like something is their fault. Like something that could have been prevented, they did nothing about it. So it isolates us, puts us in a place where we withdraw. Have you ever worried that if you share your story, people will look at you differently? You know, some of us walk around like if they only knew what I've been through, they might judge me, right? People are gonna look at me different. That fear keeps us quiet, but silence doesn't heal. I want to repeat that. Silence doesn't heal. Somebody put that in the chat. Silence doesn't heal. We might think if we share our story, right, that other people will look at us different. They may not understand us. They may judge us, but that fear pushes us into isolation. And that's what we don't want when we're dealing with something. We don't want the isolation. Okay? It can push us into isolation. So we want to look at a couple things. We want to look at a couple things when it comes to that. One of the most harmful effects of this lie is that isolation delays our healing. When we feel disconnected, we're less likely to seek help. We're less likely to talk about our feelings or even acknowledge that we need support. The longer we stay isolated, the deeper the wound becomes. The longer we stay isolated, the deeper the wound becomes, and it's harder for us to reach out. That's like if you got a cut and you don't tend to it. You don't tend to it. You don't try to make it better. You don't give it any air. You don't clean it off. It can get infected. And that is what isolation can do to a person. It can infect you. It builds up an infestation in you. And you isolate, you withdraw, you disconnect from any and everybody, right? How many of us have felt this way before? And remember, this is a safe space. If you felt this way, just give me a heart. Just give me a heart. Because we're going to talk about how we can knock that lie down. Because that's all it is a lie. That's all it is a lie. So here's the truth. Let me say it loud. You are not alone. You're not alone. You are not alone. And you're never alone spiritually. Let me say that again. You're never alone spiritually. We all have a shared human experience. You believe that? We all have a shared human experience. There are people who understand your pain, who've been through similar experiences and can support you. In fact, trauma is something that affects millions of people worldwide. This isn't just you. It's millions of people worldwide. But the lie and isolation keeps us from recognizing that we're part of a much larger compassionate community. We have a community of people who's willing to support us. But isolation tells us, no, you're by yourself. So let's talk about this. In Deuteronomy 31:6, it reminds us that I will never leave you or forsake you. Even in your darkest moments, God is right there with you, guiding you and comforting you and holding you up. And when you feel like no one else understands, guess what? He does. I will never leave you or forsake you. So you're never alone. Even when you feel like you're standing, you ever watch those movies and all of a sudden two people catch eyes and everyone else disappears and it's just them in the room? If you ever feel like that everyone else around you disappears and it's only you in the room, guess what? You are still not alone. You know, a lot of people blame God for the things that have happened to them, but Jesus himself experienced loneliness and sorrow, especially the time before his crucifixion, right? But even in his darkest moments, he stayed connected to his Father, praying. He stayed praying. So even in those moments, he stayed praying. All the same experience, the isolation, the loneliness, but he stayed connected. And that's what we have to do, is stay connected to those people, to your community, so that you can begin to talk about what happened, so that you can get through it, right? There's always comfort. You can find comfort in prayer and connection with the Father. When we connect with others, whether it's through a support group, therapy, or even a conversation with a friend, we open up the door to healing, because we have to speak it, right? We have to speak it out of our mouths. We open up the door to healing. And you start to realize, hey, I'm not the only one that's going through this. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and all of a sudden you're talking and you're like, you know what? I've done that. I felt that. You're not alone. You are not alone. I want to remind you that you are not alone. Okay? Give me one more second, you guys. Hold on 1 second. All right, I am back. Thank you for your patience. You are not alone. You know, sometimes we feel that way, but we're definitely not. We have the support that we need, even though we think that we don't. So just remember that. We are not alone, even spiritually. So why is connection important? Connection makes you feel seen and heard. Makes you feel seen and heard. It validates your experience, and you gain a new perspective. Hearing what others have coped with and healed from, it gives you power. It empowers you to say, hey, I can get through this too. And let's not forget, healing comes through community. Remember, in Matthew 18:20, it says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered, 2 or more are gathered in my name, I am in the midst. Where 2 or more are gathered, that is your community. I am in the midst. He shows up. You're never alone in your struggle. And that's why it's important that even when you're dealing with something, don't disconnect from your community. Whether it's your church community, whether it's your family who's supportive, right? Those people who really love and care for you. If it's a group that you belong to, a support group, you know, people who can pour into you and encourage you. Don't disconnect. There is healing in community. I've seen it so many times. Think about when we talked about even the things we've gone through recently, like through the pandemic, right? When the isolation was there. No one could visit. No one was visiting. No one was doing the things that they normally would. And what happened? People came out of that in a different mind state. They were depressed. Some were anxious because they didn't have that community. But we need that community in order to thrive. We need it. It's so important. So now, let's call it out. Let's call it out. We got to flip the script on this lie. Right? That's what happens when you're trying to do more than one thing at once. Hold on. All right, we are all set now. First step to breaking the lie, to say you are not alone. That's a lie. I'm not alone. Once you put a name on it, it has to go, right? Once you put a name on it, it has to go. There are people that support you. The first step is recognizing that you are not alone. In Psalm 34:18, it reminds us that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Whenever that feeling creeps in, hit it back with the truth that I'm not alone. God is here with me. He's here with me. So first of all, is speaking it out of your mouth. Remember, we talked about that. We tend to hold things because we don't want to share. We don't want to share because of the shame and guilt that I mentioned earlier. But we gotta speak it. We gotta say it. No, that's not true. That's not my reality. The next thing you do, take a small step. Reach out. Even if it's just reaching out to someone who you feel close to, like, you know what, I need to share this. I don't want to feel isolated. It can be a family member, a close friend, or even someone that you talk to, a doctor, right? Your pastor, someone, your mentor. Make a list of people that you trust. That's going to be your homework. Make a list of people that you trust. And if you thought, even if you feel overwhelmed, these people you can call and say, you know what, I trust that if I tell them something, it's going to be taken care of. It's going to stay with them. They're not going to blab off and go and try to demean me or judge me based on what I'm saying. Make a list of those people that you can go to. And you may not be able to tell the whole story at once. It's pieces to it, parts and pieces. Remember, the healing takes time. It's not just I jump in and I jump out. It takes time. There's bits and pieces to this. You don't have to fear judgment. You're not alone. Find your community, right? Join a group, a faith-based group, a group that's going to help you, maybe a therapy group. You are not alone. I'm going to end and start again.